So thank you all for coming. It is just about 7:15, so we're going to start the meeting. We have quite a bit of housekeeping to do, and then we're going to get into our guest speaker. Lindsey is here, our county supervisor. We're very excited to hear what she has to say. You all have these on your tables, and we also have quite a few folks on the Zoom call still. So hello, everybody. So these on your table are the ask your questions. We had quite a few questions already submitted to us online. The folks that are on the Zoom calls, you can submit questions. However, we're probably not going to get around to it. So, and if you raise your hand on the Zoom, it doesn't do anything anymore. So, but we will, if you do have questions, we will forward all your questions on Zoom, and or here, if we don't get to it, we'll forward those onto the supervisor so she can respond to you. So if you do want to be responded to on this, also please put your emails so that she can get back to you. Okay. So if we could have our board of directors come up here, because we're going to do a little introduction. If you can all come on up here so you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Bob Anderson. I'm Vice President of SOHA and Chair of the Transportation Committee.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Great to see you. My name's Nancy Segoyan. I'm a board member and the membership chair. So send people to some.
Thank you. When you introduce yourself, stay over here so the folks on Zoom can see you.
Maria Pavlo Calvin. I'm the chair of the legislative committee.
Don Kurzweil, new board member.
Hi, everybody. Jules Spear. I want to let you know that we have lots of food left over. So I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm chair of the food committee.
Okay, hi, my name is Larry Slade. I'm a new board member and I'm chair of the homelessness committee.
Hi, I'm John Eisen. I'm treasurer of the association.
Hi, I'm Jay Weitzler. I'm secretary of the organization, and I'm also the liaison with the Hillside Federation and the Buckley School. And speaking of the Buckley School, if any of you have any comments or issues that might come up dealing with the school, please let me know, and I'll give Ms. Turchin and Ms. Stakon, who are with the Buckley School, whatever your issues are. So just let me know. You can email me through SOHA 914 or search my email. I'm sure you can find it online. Thank you.
Yay.
Hi, I'm Marshall Long. I work on housing and land use. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. So Tom Glick is not here tonight. He had somebody, he was exposed to somebody who had COVID the other day. So he's just staying out of our area. Not that he has it. He's just being nice and staying away from us all. So those of you that on Zoom, those of you in the room, if you guys want to be part of any of the committees that we just did, we're all volunteers here. We all appreciate it. You guys, if you have a passion to work on something, you know who to talk to now. So Jose, we have our slows here tonight. I said Jose, but also Mariana.
Good evening, everybody.
Stand in the middle.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Officer Sadana. I'm the senior lead officer for the southern portion of Sherman Oaks. Just going to report, we had a few business burglaries, window smashes that's been going on the boulevard. And also we had a string of burglaries south of the boulevard, like along Bowl Drive and Rand Drive and Levitt Lane. And those, just want to emphasize how important the cameras are, the video cameras. It's very important to have those cameras. We were able to catch Levitt Lane, the ring camera captured vehicle leaving the burglary residence. And using some resources from Long Ridge Estates. And I spoke to one of the block captains down there, and they were able to obtain a license plate from another burglary from that, that happened on Rand Drive. So the flood cameras or any type of surveillance cameras are very important. It might not be important at that moment, but it is connected to other burglaries.
Hello, everyone. My name is Officer Mariana Romo, and I cover the northern part of Sherman Oaks. I wanted to take this opportunity. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the news, but we did have a homicide here in Sherman Oaks. It was an isolated incident. It was a neighbor-to-neighbor dispute. But I would like to take this opportunity to remind the community, and if you guys can help me spread this information, we do offer the dispute resolution program. This is a program that if there's any concerns such as business to business, landlord tenant disputes, neighbor to neighbor disputes, the city attorney offers this program. Please use it. It's free of charge. There's a mediator that speaks to all parties, and we try to find a resolution. Unfortunately, this particular incident just it could have been prevented. So please, just a reminder, we do have a dispute resolution program through the city attorney's office. And if you guys have any questions, please, you guys can always email one of us. My email is 40229@lapd.online, 40229@lapd.online.
Awesome. Let's hear a big round for these guys. Thank you, guys. These guys do amazing work for us, and I really appreciate it. So we're gonna have a few other folks from the city electeds, or actually the city offices. I'm gonna call a bunch of you guys up here, so if you could just kind of get in queue. So Andy Solomon, then Aaron, then Sean, Sebastian, and then Barry, and then actually Ryan. Okay, who's first? Andy Solomon, neighborhood prosecutor. Oh, by the way, folks, so what Jose was talking about, the camera capture. I don't know how many years ago was it? Was it about 5-6 years ago? So about 5 or 6 years ago in my neighborhood, we had a huge amount of break-ins, a very large amount. And so we got together as a neighborhood. We all contributed a little bit of money to install these flock cameras, which we now have 13 cameras in our neighborhood that basically capture images. It's not live video, it's just images of license plates and people's faces. And it's on private property, so we're allowed to do this. We've solved quite a few crimes, and we've also brought down the crime, the break-ins in our area as well. So if you live in a neighborhood that is active and you want to prevent it, flock camera system is, I don't get anything from them. I think there are some others, but I think they're the largest now. It's a very reasonable, easy way to go ahead and capture and protect your neighborhoods a little bit better. The cops can't be there for everything. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to talk to Jose. No, I'll talk to you about it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andy Solomon. I'm your neighborhood prosecutor. For those of you who don't know, I'm from the city attorney's office, and I deal with a lot of issues that regular government intervention doesn't solve. So I'll give you a quick update. Last month, I reminded you about our, couldn't figure out a good name for him, but Poop Bandit, maybe? Do you guys remember the guy in the news on Ventura Boulevard threw his feces at one of the business owners? I see people nodding yes. Okay, you guys may recall that he was out on a warrant from West LA. So I was working with the neighborhood prosecutor there. What he had done there was a young boy on his bicycle, and he grabbed him and just kind of strangled him. The DA rejected the case. The neighborhood prosecutor asked LAPD to take the case, and then she filed it. We were working together because he was mentally unstable, and we were trying to convince the court system that he needs help. Okay. I'm reporting to you today, as of yesterday morning, we discovered, well, I'll give you last week, the cases were terminated out of our control. We weren't even in court. We were shocked. So I called Claudia, the neighborhood prosecutor there. Her case was also terminated. She called DMH, and we had a whole team going with this situation. We discovered that they terminated the criminal case because they conserved him successfully. So county council successfully conserved him. This was a huge push. This is kind of rare. It doesn't happen as much as it should. So if you guys need anything from me, please feel free to reach out to your board members. They all know how to reach me. And then we could work on whatever issues you have. If I'm not the right person, I'll direct you to the right person. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Guys, I said in queue, Aaron,
She might not be able to make it. She was gonna be late.
okay, Sean. Then after Sean, Sebastian, then Barry, then Ryan.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be with you again. Nice to see some familiar faces, some new faces in the crowd. I'm Sean Regan from Congressman Brad Sherman's office, just down the street here in America's best named city, Sherman Oaks. You know the drill. So, I'm just here, short and sweet, like I promised, really fast. So we deal with anything pertaining to the IRS, Social Security, Medicare, you name it, we do it. And the office, while I'm primarily a field representative, my specialty casework wise is with passports. You call our office, if 2 weeks prior to your date of travel, you still don't have a passport, let me know. I will move heaven and earth to get you one, but usually it just comes down to sending an email. So we will help you out. And I'm very glad to say that the very first town hall of this new term in our new district, the 32nd district, was a tremendous success. We had 5,000 participants, and that's largely thanks to the folks in this room. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I'm very happy to say that our next town hall is already scheduled for March 28th at 7 o'clock. You can go ahead and dial in at 855-920-0548 or submit an advance question at our website, sherman.house.org. And that's all I have for you. So thank you very much.
Good evening, Sherman Oaks. My name is Sebastian Lozano. I am Assembly Member Laura Friedman's new district director, and I wanted to come by today to introduce myself. And I will be covering Sherman Oaks specifically until we hire a field rep to cover this area. So it's important that you get to know me. I spent the last 5 years working for Assembly Member Richard Bloom in Santa Monica, so I have a state experience. But before that, I began my whole career arc as an intern and later council aide for Councilmember David Rue here in Sherman Oaks on Ventura Boulevard above the 7-Eleven. So I'm familiar with the neighborhood. I'm familiar with a lot of the different organizations, and I am excited and happy to get back to work here and to advocate and be in the community again. As a state governmental office, we can help with state agencies, state departments. If there's any legislation you would like to recommend or talk about, we're here for that. Speaking of legislation, the assembly member was busy this week. We introduced some bills. I have them right here. We have AB6, requires regional transportation agencies to prioritize and fund transportation projects. And transportation is important in Sherman Oaks, so I'm sure this will be a big one here, including those funded by local sales tax measures. It contributes to regional and state climate goals. AB8 requires ticket sellers to disclose to a purchaser the portion of the ticket price that represents a fee or surcharge, and a link to an internet webpage that includes refund requirements. I'll make it really quick. We got one more. Assembly Joint Resolution 1, the Republic of Artsakh condemns Azerbaijan's blockade of the Republic of Artsakh and urges the United States government to take immediate action to assist the Armenians of Artsakh. Assembly Member Friedman was an author of that bill, along with Assembly Member Folder and Assembly Member Wendy Carrillo. Now, if you all need assistance with any state agencies or departments, please feel free to reach out to our office. We can be reached. I have field reps who are ready to go and ready to assist. 818-558-3043. That's the number to our district office in Burbank. And if you want to reach out to me, you can contact me at sebastian.lozano@asm.ca.gov. Thank you very much. In Burbank off of Magnolia.
Thank you. Can everybody hear in the back? Can everybody hear okay? Okay, great. It's the first time we're using this microphone, so I just want to make sure. I know you can hear my voice, but I don't even need the microphone. Okay, come on up. Next is Barry. So I'm going to embarrass Barry because, come here, Barry. Lindsey, you are so fortunate to have this girl on your team. She is awesome. Barry how many years were you with Pittsburgh? 8 years. And she was absolutely the glue. She was the point person in that office. And anytime this community needed anything, we went to Barry and she took care of it. She was awesome. So we are fortunate to have her in your office, and you're very fortunate. So I told you I'd embarrass you, but. All right.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. I know you said you were gonna make my cheeks turn the color of these tablecloths. Thank you, everybody. Good evening, Sherman Oaks. I am so proud to have our new county supervisor here this evening. She is my boss, and I am so excited that she's here that I'm actually not going to steal her thunder, but you know that we are here for you. I will be here. Our staff will be here this evening, but I am going to pass it along this evening so that we can hear from our new county supervisor. But I just wanted to say hello to all of you and thank you very much, Matt.
Okay, hi everyone. Ryan Ahari, Sherman Oaks Field Deputy for, I've been told to shout, so if I'm a little louder, that's what's going on. I'm the Sherman Oaks Field Deputy for Councilmember Nithya Raman, and I'm here to provide some office updates with you fine folks. I did want to say thank you to everyone who came and volunteered at Churches Chimes in Sherman Oaks for our homeless count. Our wonderful Jody Francisco right over here at this table helped lead. And CD4 for the first year led with Jody. So this is going to be a partnership that continues into the future. But thank you to John Eisen, to Tom Blake, Larry Slade, and anyone else who I'm forgetting who came and volunteered. So thank you all very much. I also wanted to let you all know that at our honorary mayor's request, I worked with the Bureau of Street Services to get 30 news racks flagged for removal in Sherman Oaks. So if you're removing, if you notice fewer news racks on our streets, definitely give a shout out to our honorary mayor right over here. But now we're going to move on to fixing parking meters and red curbs. I also wanted to say thank you to Maria for flagging. If everyone knows, there's sometimes illegal advertisement that goes up on the old Hamburger Hamlet building on Ventura and Van Nuys. So I work with the Department of Building and Safety to get that advertisement removed. So thank you, Maria, and also Jeff for flagging that. Just two more things. The council member sent a letter to the planning department in regards to the home sharing ordinance. This has to do with long-term rentals or short-term rentals. No, sorry, not long-term rentals, short-term rentals throughout our city. There are issues with enforcement. There are cases of violence, and we just want to make sure that our neighborhoods are safe and protected. So we've asked the planning department to come back with a list of suggestions on how we can fix this ordinance. And last thing, I just wanted to say at Van Nuys Sherman Oaks Park, Sunday, February 26th, we are giving away LA Sanitation compost pails. This is going to be this is going to be on be able to put on your kitchen counter, and then you can put them in your green bin, because starting January of, well, I guess last month, we all were supposed to start doing composting in our green bins. 10:30 to 1 p.m. Sorry, 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. It'll be at the park. I'll let you all know specifically the location later, but sorry for the long report, but I'll be around if you need to get my contact information. Thank you, everybody. Sunday, February 26th.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, again, if you guys, Nancy, come on up. If you guys have questions for the supervisor, please fill this out, and just when you're done filling it out, just raise your hand and somebody will come and pick it up.
Everybody, welcome. I am the membership chair, as I mentioned. I just want to remind everybody about renewing your membership. If you get one of our notices, it means time to renew. And that's really important because we can't be here without your support. We are the only community organization that is nonprofit in Sherman Oaks. So we are 100% members supported. And so we need you not only to renew and help us keep helping you, but also spread the word to your neighbors and friends. The work we do helps all residents. The other thing I wanted to mention just really quick, if we don't have your email address, we need it. We do send out occasional email updates, and then we may go to more email on the newsletters eventually. So it's really important. If anyone here is a member, And if we don't have your email, please either give it to me or write it down on a piece of paper along with your name, address, and your email legibly. You can leave it at the front desk or give it to me or give it to any board member. Thank you all for your support.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, are there any candidates that are running for office? Anyone? Oh, I see a hand. Okay. You guys are saying, what are you talking about? There's no election coming on, right? Right? Is there an election coming up? Oh, we have a declared candidate here for something coming up.
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ethan Weaver, and for the last 4 years, I've had the privilege to serve as the neighborhood prosecutor on the other side of the hill in Hollywood. And in my time there, I have seen City Hall fail the citizens of this city dramatically, and it is pissing me off. And I realized that I was faced with a choice. Either I was going to step up and do something or just sit on my hands. And I decided I needed to step up and do something. So I'm here to you tonight to introduce myself as a candidate for CD4. I'm running, realizing that our city is in crisis and no one's stepping up to make the changes that are necessary. LAPD is in a crisis. It is shrinking faster than it is growing, and no one's talking about it. And leaders want to point fingers, but they don't want to step up and actually make a difference. Our city hall is strangling business and strangling and encouraging development in all of the wrong places, and is deaf to the concerns of communities like you. And we have a homeless authority that is designed to fail, and no one wants to address these issues. And those are the reasons I'm stepping up to run for office. So I'm here tonight to introduce myself to you, to shake your hands, to get to know you, and to get to know your community needs. And this is not the last time you see me. I am a gold member of the Sherman Homeowners Association, and you will be seeing a lot more. So thank you so much.
So you're running for
Council District 4.
Council District 4. Okay, terrific, great, thank you. All right. A candidate. All right. Who knew? All right, Larry Slade is our chair of our homelessness or unhoused committee. Is that Larry? And then after Larry, we're gonna have a report from Bob Anderson, and then we get to hear from the supervisor. Sorry, Larry.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it. My committee's been active in trying to figure out how best we can facilitate the mitigation of the impact of homelessness on our community. We're primarily focused on the homeless who refuse to be housed, who, if offered a roof over their head, will say no, and the specific subset of that group that poses a threat to themselves and others. And we're looking for ways to work with city, county, state officials to try to create solutions to this problem as best we can. Certainly, if you're living in Los Angeles and specifically in Sherman Oaks, you're aware of how pervasive this issue is. It's been all over the news. Sherman Oaks itself has been on the national news in the last couple of weeks about this problem. From my estimation, the city officials, especially the newly elected city officials, are jumping on this issue very quickly. They prioritize it. They've made it very clear by declaring a state of emergency that they recognize the seriousness of the problem. We're here to support their efforts in that regard and do anything we can to facilitate solutions. We recognize that it's not a simple problem and there's no simple solution, but we want to actively participate as members of our community to clean up the problem as best we can so that we can preserve the sanctity of the community that we know and love. In May of this year, the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association monthly meeting will be dedicated to the issue of homelessness, and we will be putting together a panel of different officials who specialize in trying to deal with this issue from different areas. And we're going to have an open and frank discussion about what are the problems, what are the solutions, what can we do to help create the problem and be part of the solution. So that's why we're here. I thank you for your time.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Anderson. I'm chair of the Transportation Committee, and mostly my focus right now is the Sepulveda Transit Corridor Project. And last month, at last month's meeting, I announced that Metro was holding a series of open houses and I would be attending. I did attend, so did Maria Jeff Calvin, so did Lisa Petrus, who's in the back, and it was a waste of time. The meeting was a bomb. There was no new information. There was a little bit on where stations are, but if you said, what would they look like? They didn't have anything. I had the nice privilege of having with me a legal videographer, and I filmed everything that I asked, and I have videos of the responses that I got. They provided no schedule of when they're going to make their decisions. And so I kind of cornered one of their people and asked the question, and she finally admitted that the draft environmental impact report, which was due out last March of 2022, they think will be available in the late part of 2024. The decision on which alternative they pick, which was due last November, 3 months ago, they said that's going to be in 2024. I don't believe it. It takes 6 months between the environmental report and the decision, at least, to get public comment. So it's going to be 2025. So it's only a 2.5-year slip in their first 5 years on the program, which is not too bad, you know, for Metro. I'm sorry to be mean, but we're kind of tired of not being heard. I've asked 75 questions personally. They have never answered one of them. And that's not right, because there's other people around the county doing it. The other thing is I did find out something, and that's they put some data up that showed how many cars there were in a train for each of the technologies and how many passengers in the car. I asked them, why don't you just tell us what the capacity is? That's what the big number is. Oh, people can calculate that themselves. Does anybody in the audience here know how to calculate passenger capacity? Good, Matt. I do too. That's what I told them. So I calculated it and I circulated around. You got a piece of paper on your table that shows it. Turns out they show passengers per car because the monorail looks like it has less passenger capacity than anything else. But if you calculate the actual passenger capacity, the monorail has 16,560 passengers per hour, and the subways have 12,000. The monorail has 35% more passenger capacity than the heavy rail, but they haven't told anybody that, including when I talked to Catherine Supervisor Barger's transportation deputy, who I know, he didn't know that. He's on the board and they didn't tell their own board. It's kind of disgusting. And if they don't tell their own board, think what they're telling us. So just a little update. We've got a little pressure going on, talking to a lot of people. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. One more quick announcement.
Thank you. Hi, Lisa Petrus with the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. I just wanted to advise people that on February 22nd at 6 p.m., the Van Nuys Airport will be hosting a vision study open house. I'll give the link to you and Bob, if you can put it on there for everybody. It's virtual and it's to go over the vision plan. City planning will be there as well as LAWA. So they are there to give you the lowdown on what the plans are coming up for the Van Nuys Airport. And I hope everybody attends because I know it's very important. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so does anyone have any questions? I think I saw a couple. Jay, can you grab these? Or somebody to grab those and bring those up? So do we address you as supervisor, as Lindsey, as Supervisor Horvath? Tell us. No. Any of those are good? Your Honor? Your Highness? That's why I'm asking. Okay. So here's what we're going to do tonight. We'd like to have a few minutes. Tell us who you are. We all know that you were council member in West Hollywood. You were the mayor in West Hollywood. We're very fortunate that you're here representing us as a supervisor. But who are you? Tell us who you are. We'd like to know, right? Wow. Come on, do we want to know? All right. And then we have a handful of questions from the audience that I will ask. And some of the folks, if they're here, I'll have them stand up and ask. And that's how it's going.
Okay, perfect.
Thank
Good evening, everyone. Oh, hey, we have a little bit of response. People are awake. We're excited. We're happy to be out in Sherman Oaks. Very excited to see you all tonight, and I'm really, really grateful that you welcomed me in. I'm very excited, getting hard to work right away as your next supervisor. And these past few months have been eye-opening in many ways. They've been full of a lot of work, full of a lot of focus. And we're in some ways building the plane as we're flying it, because as some of you may know who followed the election, from the time we learned officially that we had won in the election to the time I got sworn in, it was about 8 days, 8 business days. So we had 8 days to transition into getting into the office. So I'll get there in a second, because I heard loud and clear you want to know more about me. So I'm going to go back a little bit and let you know that I was born and raised in the Midwest. I grew up in a very small town, a town of about 12,000 people. And I saw everyone I knew at church on Sunday. When I got dropped off at the street corner on my way home from school, I'd wave, "Hi, Mrs. Greben," and she'd give us a popsicle, and I'd wave, "Hi, Mrs. Verdell," and her golden retriever would be out in the front yard. We played baseball in the cul-de-sac. I basically lived in a Disney after-school special. And I would like to make sure that my generation is not the last who can enjoy such a childhood, that my generation and the generations to come have the opportunity to be raised in communities just like that, with services and support and quality of life that uplifts everyone at every stage of life, and that really invests in our families and making sure that our neighborhoods can be enjoyed by everyone. As I mentioned, I went to school there. My grandparents lived in the same small town that I did, so I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, which translated into my focus as a council member on aging issues. AARP was very excited to work with me when I was first elected to the city council. I was the youngest mayor in the country, youngest female mayor in the country at the time. So I was working with AARP to create our Aging in Place, Aging in Community strategic plan. And we worked in partnership with the World Health Organization. That all came from growing up with my grandparents and understanding that we have to build our neighborhood and our communities for every stage of life. And so I take those values from my early childhood with me into my policy making and to how I see and build community. So when I was 15, my family moved to Las Vegas. I can't tell you what kind of culture shock it was to move from a small Midwestern town to a place like Las Vegas. I lived there, I went to high school there for 3 years, and people ask me what that was like. I assume it's like living in Arizona, except my prom was at Caesar's Palace. So a little bit different. But I learned a lot there. And actually my guidance counselor in high school is now the mayor of the city. So a little bit of interesting connection to politics, but at that time I had no interest in getting into elected office. That was not what my journey was, or so I thought. I wanted to be a lawyer. Like a lot of us in our generation who ended up going to law school. I did not. My brother became the lawyer for our family, thank goodness. But I did go back to the Midwest for school. I went to school at Notre Dame, which is familiar to people in Sherman Oaks, sort of, but a dangerous thing to say sometimes in Southern California with a lot of Trojan fans out there. But I enjoyed my 4 years at Notre Dame, where I studied political science and gender studies, thinking that I was going to law school. UCLA has a wonderful program on gender in the law, and so I thought I was going to law school at UCLA. I was also recruited by a musical theater academy in Hollywood to come out here. So the grand plan was that I was going to go to musical theater school, see if it took me anywhere, maybe just to the Pantages, who knows. And then if that didn't work out, go to law school. That was the plan that brought me to Los Angeles. I ended up doing none of that because I am a millennial. You may have heard we have this little thing called student loan debt that we talk a lot about. And so I had to get a job that paid for my life, that gave me benefits, that allowed me to pay my rent and take care of myself. Because I wasn't going to live in my parents' house. I know that's a thing for some people. It wasn't for me. And so I moved to Los Angeles, got a job, and so really started investing in my community. I first lived in Hollywood on Wilcox, just north of Hollywood Boulevard. And I would walk to my advertising job at what was then the TV Guide building. It's now called Trailer Park because the company that I worked at got bought by Trailer Park and then they named the building. But I used to walk from Wilcox down Hollywood Boulevard to about Hollywood and Highland. And as my job required me to stay later and later, I saw Hollywood Boulevard change. It's different to walk home at 6 o'clock at night than it is to walk home at 10 o'clock at night. And that was back in 2004. So you can imagine, I had particular insight as a resident, as somebody who worked in Hollywood and lived in Hollywood, the kind of experience that people had on the streets and what a good quality of life should feel like if you're living and working and trying to walk to work and enjoy your community. So right down the street was an LAPD station on Wilcox. So I knew the LAPD was nearby. And I also could walk to my church, Blessed Sacrament on Sunset Boulevard. That was my neighborhood when I first moved here. I could walk everywhere, but I didn't really feel comfortable in those later hours. And sometimes, so I had to buy a car. So I figured out how to do that because I moved out here without a car with very little money to my name, trying to make sure that I was making a good living for myself so I could take care of myself and pay down that student loan debt. While I was doing that, I wanted to invest more in my community. So I got involved in a variety of community organizations, many of which at the time focused on violence against women and girls and working to support women and families. I served on the board for the Glendale YWCA. I helped to start the local chapter of the National Organization for Women. And I worked in a variety of organizations on the environment, democratic politics, any number of issues. And so I started to build my community. And that's when I got introduced to the city of West Hollywood. I was invited into an event that allowed me to meet the mayor at the time. And so she welcomed me into the city. And I learned that this event was supported by an organization called the Women's Advisory Board in the city of West Hollywood. And so I thought maybe someday I'll get to be on that board. They just a few short months later appointed me to the board. 8 months after I got appointed, they elected me chair of the board. And while I was serving as chair of the board, one of our council members, long-serving council members who was in his 90s, passed away while he was in office. And they decided to go through an appointment process to fill that vacancy. And I affectionately refer to that process as the American Idol of politics, because about 37 people applied to be a city council member. We all got to give 2-minute speeches in a publicly noticed meeting. And then the remaining 4 council members decided in a public forum who would be a good council member, discussing our strengths and our weaknesses, what would complement talents on the council, what might be some of our struggles. If you can imagine, this is all being said out loud. It's recorded, it exists online. So my mom was watching from home in Ohio. My dad was living in San Diego at the time. They were watching online. It was surreal. And I thought I had no chance at all. I had officially lived in the city for 18 months. I, as I said, was serving on the Women's Advisory Board, involved in a few groups, but I was encouraged to just get involved. What's the worst that could happen? Maybe you'll be on a commission. Maybe somebody will invite you into their neighborhood groups to work with them to help build community. Well, the worst thing that could happen is you actually get appointed to the city council. And in my case, I was unanimously elected by that city council to serve as their colleague for the remaining 2 years of that term. And it taught me a lot about how to be involved in community, what people were looking for, but most importantly, how to listen. And I won't demonstrate that very well tonight because you asked me to come talk to you, but I promise that I want to listen, I want to learn, and I want to show up for you and the things that matter to you. Because coming from, I worked very hard in my city for 15 years as a Women's Advisory Board member, a city council member. I ran in 2011 to keep that seat, but I lost. So then they appointed me to the Transportation Commission, and I know that's Bob's #1 issue is transportation. We're working on that, I promise. But serving as a transportation commissioner, I got introduced to the circus that is Metro. And so I learned like I need to have a seat at the table if I'm gonna be able to influence what's going on, not just for my community, but you have to make a difference in the whole region in order to make that impact. Well, they decided that when I started talking like that, they wanted to put me back on the city council. So I served 2 terms on the council, serving twice as mayor. During my second term as mayor, our community was recognized as the most business-friendly city during COVID because we fought hard for our businesses to keep them open, to keep people working to the best of our ability, and to keep people safe. And I think that's really important because when I think about the things that I have heard come from the Sherman Oaks community, making sure that we're supporting our businesses, that you have a vibrant local economy, that you have places you can go to enjoy and have community, but also that those places are safe and welcoming. All of that is important to me. All of it I know is important to you, and I know that we're going to work as partners to create that reality. Now, a lot of times people have no idea what a county supervisor does. They ask me, people ask me along the way on the campaign trail about development projects in their city. I'm sorry to tell you, the city of Los Angeles is in charge of those, and I cannot help you on proposed development projects because they will go to your council member. They will not come to me as a county supervisor. What we do in the county is provide the social safety net for our cities. So services related, for example, to homelessness and housing, services related to what the state pays for, the county administers. So there are a variety of social service programs for hardworking families who need help, for older adults who need help. There are all kinds of programs that the county provides and serves. We're in charge of the sheriff's department, the county fire response, the courts. We're in charge of children and family services, of child protective services, of foster care, of administering elections. There's all kinds of things that the county is responsible for, more than 30 departments. And so there's a lot of work that the county does, but some of it is not always visible to you. And so one of the reasons I personally want to be more visible to you is to help illuminate more about what the county does, the ways it should be touching your life if it's not, and the ways that we can make sure that that daylight between the city and county that I heard a lot about from this community about where you're not getting your fair share of services from the county, where you're not getting enough attention and support, that we close the daylight there and that we work together between city and county to make sure that services and support that you deserve in your community are actually being delivered. Now, I also, during my time as a council member, because even though my residents didn't know it, West Hollywood City Council was not a full-time job. And so I was a small business owner. I worked in advertising, as I mentioned, and I eventually got to own my own small business. So I have an appreciation for business owners, starting your own business, fighting through regulation and red tape. And so I enjoy cutting through it to make sure that we are helping people succeed in their businesses, that people are able to thrive, get jobs, provide for their families, and realize their own dreams. All of that is incredibly important to me. And so I think I come to this seat with a bit of a different perspective. Also, your county leaders often have come from state government. Now, I know there are people in our state government that we love, but state government as a whole, I can't tell you how many times we've had to fight Sacramento at the local level on things that we just didn't think they really saw our community or understood our issues. And so going to the County Board of Supervisors with a local government perspective has me checked in on issues in a way that I've already been told in our few short months in office is very different than people who are currently, who have been serving there. And that's to be expected because we have a different kind of experience. And I think that that experience is important because when I spoke with Maria and Jeff, for example, about what's going on in Sherman Oaks and what you're concerned about, those local concerns should be informing not just constituent response, and that part is very important to me, but also how we're making policy, because we can draft up all kinds of policy, but if it doesn't relate to the experience you're having in your own neighborhood, it's no good. It's not worth anything. And so I want to make sure that we're connected in that way. And that is why we have Barry leading our external affairs for the whole district. We're building out our team. Barry's supported by a man named Austin Sear and a whole host of folks. We have 3 different offices, one in Van Nuys, one in Calabasas, and one in West LA. But we will all make ourselves available to you, no matter where you are, to make sure that the services and support that you need, you don't have to go downtown to get. We'll make sure that we meet you right in your own community and we show up and hear exactly what it is you need. Now, as I said, it took about 8 days between the time I learned I won. The next day I got a phone call from the county, and then I called the former supervisor and said, can I talk to your staff? Because I'd like for them to stick around a little bit to help us transition. And she said, no, because next week's Thanksgiving, so we don't have time to set a meeting. And I said, okay, great. Well, I hope they like me when they meet me, because I'm going to need them. Will you please ask them if they might consider sticking around for 90 days to help us transition as we hire and staff up, as we learn the ropes and kind of how the building works. And gratefully, many of them did to help us transfer into the roles. And I'm incredibly grateful for that handoff, because without it, we wouldn't have known how to get started in the building. If you've ever gone to that building, you know what I mean, because it's kind of, there are entrances on different levels and different streets. It's a maze. And so, but the work we're very clear on. And that's why the first motion that we authored in partnership, we had Supervisor Barger as our co-author, was the declaration of emergency on homelessness, because we knew the mayor of Los Angeles declared that state of emergency. And I met with her for lunch to say, okay, so tell me what authorities you now have because of this declaration of emergency. Because I had some ideas about what I wanted to do to make sure that the county was also meeting the moment. And her information helped me know exactly what we needed to do and how we needed to get to work. And so she came and met with the board, told us why she declared the state of emergency and what her expectations were. And I spent the next few weeks working with our CEO, the head of the homelessness initiative, our director of HR, our director of LACTA, so many folks who touch homelessness in so many different ways, and said, we have to get to work and here are my expectations. And so our homelessness, our state of emergency on homelessness allowed us a lot of flexibility in hiring and contracting and a lot of other issues that we know have been challenging. For example, I've heard LAHSA mentioned tonight, and I learned that at LAHSA, a contract from the time it was agreed to the time it's finally executed and money is in the hands of our service providers can be touched 140 times. So if we wonder why it's taking forever for services to get out to you and your community, that's one of the reasons. That has to stop. So not only are we expediting our contracting processes, but I appointed myself to the LAHSA Commission to make sure that that I am at every seat and every table that has decision-making authority on how we deliver effective solutions to homelessness. You did not elect me to tell other people and then other people and then other people and add more layers of bureaucracy, quite the opposite. And so I'm also happy to tell you that I met with the mayor this morning, and I talked with her about the fact that I was coming to your meeting tonight and the concerns that I know you all have and that I share about the deaths that have happened in Sherman Oaks related to homelessness. And I talked with her about the need for an inside safe action here in Sherman Oaks. And I talked with her, yes, and I talked with her about how we can get the city involved on the LAHSA Commission as well in a different way. And so I'm really excited about that, because I think we need to have decision makers and authority at that table because right now LAHSA answers to 15 council members and a mayor, plus 5 supervisors and a county CEO, and that simply doesn't work. So we're going to fix it. We're using this time of emergency to break down what doesn't work, realign it, and make sure that the institution that we have going forward is something that makes sense. We're also focused on a variety of social issues. One I will mention, we did a public safety update in my community related to protecting our Jewish community. And now I initiated a motion and working in partnership with our sheriff's department to focus on how we can root out anti-Semitism in our communities. His 30-day report back will be coming to me at the end of this month. We will work in partnership with our Jewish community organizations and partners to create a Jewish community safety plan that is actionable and keeps people safe in every community, because nobody should live in fear of hate. Everyone should feel safe in their community and free to worship as you so wish. But there's a lot of work to be done in the county. Those are just two things that we've done. We are focusing on gun safety, on sustainability, and investing in our infrastructure. And of course, there's Metro. So we can talk about that as much as you like. I know that you have questions, and I'm happy to answer those. If you want to give me the blue sheets to take with me too for anything that I don't get in enough detail, if they have your contact information, we'll also follow up with you. But the last thing I will say before we get into questions is, if I don't get to you before you would like one-on-one tonight, my email is Lindsey, it's just my name, LINDSEY at BOS, like Board of Supervisors, BOS.LAcounty.gov. Lindsey at BOS.LAcounty.gov. And you can email us there, and we will make sure our team responds to you. We're, like I said, building up our team, but we have a lot of great folks who are eager and happy to work with you. Amy Perkins is here. She is my lead senior homelessness deputy in housing. It comes with a variety of fantastic experience and expertise, and I know she is eager to work with you. That's why she's here with me tonight. Nick Wyville, you may know, he's working on our communications team. He's played a lot of different roles and has been completely invaluable, but we're all here because we want to help and work together with you. And I'm not here to turn Sherman Oaks into the new West Hollywood, quite the opposite. I am here to learn from Sherman Oaks how I can be the partner, ally, and resource that you need to make Sherman Oaks the best it can be.
Awesome. Can we sit down? We're at the same level now. All right. So the first two questions, I'm actually going to combine into one. John, it comes from John Eisen and also Jay Weitzler. If you guys could just stand up so she can address you. Jay's over there. John, where's John? Okay. So most of the questions, or a lot of the questions that we had tonight were obviously about the homelessness issue. So John Eisen, I'm going to make it a little shorter than he has, but the official homelessness count was 69,144 folks on the streets. Assuming conservatively that 25% of those people need mental health, that's 17,000. So 17,000 need therapists. How many therapists does the county currently have, including contract therapists? How many patients do those therapists see? On average, how many times per month does a patient see a therapist? Yet you know where that's going. Okay. And then Jay wants to know, please explain specifically what, if any, progress and or plans have been made to build and staff additional mental health facilities.
All of that is an important subject to touch on in terms of Department of Mental Health. Also in our state of emergency, we are expediting hiring. I know we all have seen that we need so many more people in the Department of Mental Health. And we learned that it could take longer than a year for one person to get hired. So we are also cutting through red tape to expedite that process and make sure that to address the heart of these questions, that we are hiring enough people both in the county and in partnership with our community stakeholders, because not everybody has to be a county employee to do this job, but we have to make sure we're staffing up and working with everyone to make sure we're effectively meeting the resources. So I don't rattle off numbers off the top of my head like many other people do. So I will, if it's okay with you, take that question and get you the exact numbers. And I know our staff will help make sure that we remember that, and you'll tell me how to get in touch with those folks. But in terms of, but we desperately need to hire more people and build more facilities. We have already asked for all of the county-owned facilities in the district. So we can look at what sites in the county are already in our control. We also have started to speak with a lot of our health providers throughout the district, in all parts of the district, at how many beds they can stand up quickly, given that we are in this state of emergency, and funneling money out to our stakeholders so we can get those beds online quickly. We've learned from some of our Valley community health providers in particular that how they were able to deal with the mental health staffing challenges, because not only is there a shortage, but the people who are in the job are getting burnt out because of how much they're being asked to do. So we are learning from their experience on how to do it better, how to staff up quicker, and make sure that the resources do exist to meet the moment.
Great, thank you. So our association, our members don't just ask questions and complain, but also give solutions as well. Is Lorna Boyd here? Okay, so I know this is a city issue. However, it's a city/county problem. There is a shortage of parking lots for homeless people with vehicles to be placed on. There's a huge metro parking lot right over here off of Sepulveda between Bessemer and Cedros. That is a metro. It was purchased or obtained for Metro Park. There's a metro stop there. Like 90% of that lot is fenced off, and car vehicles is a storage lot that the city, a dealership pays to store dealer cars there. The council member, it's not CD4, it's just outside CD4, but it's right in a homeless encampment. It's what's north of us. It's it's 2, I believe. No, it's not Concordia. It's not 2.
CD6.
It's Nuri Martinez. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. So, but again, that's an example. There's county facilities. There's city facilities. You have an ear to the mayor. The new mayor is very friendly to our community as well, and has been here many times, or a couple of times. So can you address the county-owned and the city-owned lots like Lorna has brought up?
Thank you, Lorna, for that question. I think it's important, and in fact, I know it's important. The Councilmember Rahman has reached out to me about this very issue for this region. She was sharing that she has vouchers to get people into housing, especially folks who are living in RVs. But what her experience taught her is that people like to know that their RV is accessible for a period of time when they move into that housing. So as they're determining it's safe and secure and something that's comfortable for them. And so she needs a place for those RVs to go, for example, during that period of time. And she hasn't had a lot of luck in securing sites to address that kind of housing need. So we're already on it. We are looking at what parking lots might be in our control entirely, as well as what community partners we might be able to work with on a limited period of time. So for example, in a situation like that, if they needed a place for 90 days, are there parking structures in the area that we can work and maybe pay a little bit to have as a resource to help get people into the housing and help that they need and out of these RVs and get them off our streets. So this is an issue that we're checked into. We're learning more about what county parking lots and partnerships exist in this region to help with that very issue.
Thank you. And by the way, all these questions do have emails, so that and I'm going to give these to Barry, and she will give them to you. So Mary Jo Marino, are you here? Mary Jo? No? Okay. Well, she asked a question. There's quite a few homeless folks that come to this state because of our weather and because of our generosity. Most other states have residency requirements where you have to be a resident of the state for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years before you get state aid. California stopped that some 25, 30 years ago. Is the county looking at closing that gap at all? Is that something that's in your radar at all?
Yeah, there are service providers who are working on that. I know, for example, Pastor Ron in Santa Monica shared with me his experience working on the beach in Santa Monica. He's been able to help. You know, he told me about a young couple who came out here from Tennessee who just got stuck here and were delighted when he offered to help them get home. They just didn't have the resources to get back, and so they didn't know how to do that. They had sort of fallen out of grace with their family members, and so that wasn't an option. And so there are service providers who are helping people go back to places from which they've come and they would like to get back. There are some people who are whose mental health condition, as we know, is in such a state that traveling is just not an option for them. So they need to get some help before they're able to make any other choices. So we're aware that not everybody who's come here and is on our streets is originally from the region, but we do know that a majority of folks who are on our streets are from Los Angeles and are on our streets for any number of different reasons. So we're focusing on addressing the root causes, not just the symptoms that we're seeing in our neighborhoods, but how do we actually address these issues with real long-term solutions.
Great. So the next question is from Matt Epstein. So Matt asks, you had mentioned earlier that one of the programs that you guys manage is the foster kids. And foster kids are a big part of the unhoused community. At 18, they age out of the foster care program. And there is no safety net for them. When they're 18, they're gone out of that program. I believe it's 18. Okay. So that's, you know, a lot of these folks that are new to homelessness are younger folks now. Is that something that you have your eyes on?
Absolutely. We know that especially the young people that were in my community on the streets were often in West Hollywood because they were kicked out of their homes for being openly LGBT. They needed a different kind of support and service. In fact, 40% of our unhoused youth identify as LGBT. So there's a layering of services and supports that they need. For young people who might be aging out of the foster care system, which was extended, in fact, by our mayor when she was in Congress. She worked to help make sure there was an extension beyond the age of 18. But there are other ways that we can kind of work around and construct a de facto extension of the foster care system. One of them, LA Community Colleges is working on. They are working on a bond measure to help stand up housing at our community colleges. So our young people will have housing and education and pair it with job training. So whether they go into pursuing a degree or pursuing a career in a skill set that they can get trained on and enter a career, then it's a way to kind of extend the impact of the foster care system, provide support, and get our young people a little bit more structure and help getting them into the jobs that will help take care of them longer term. So there are some creative solutions we're working on, but we also need to help and intervene at earlier stages in young people's lives as well. And I think that's another way we're going to be able to help address that issue.
Okay. The next series of questions has to do with Metro. So Charles Girardi, Bob Anderson, raise your hand, Jeff Calvin, and Maria Calvin. So Charles's question is, will you pledge to make Metro more transparent and public and accept more public input from the people that it represents?
Absolutely, without question. So I didn't talk about that experience much, but I did in my own community work on the extension of the Crenshaw Northern extension of Metro Rail to come up through West Hollywood and connect at the Red Line in Hollywood. So like I said, I have a lot of experience working within this circus that is Metro. I actually personally attended over 300 community meetings in that process from the South Bay up to Valley, because a lot of different neighborhoods are going to be served by that alignment. But my hands-on approach, showing up in meetings just like this one, to hear people's concerns, to bake them into the solutions that we're providing through Metro is critical to me. And I think that's how we were able to get so much success on Crenshaw North and help accelerate its consideration far in advance of what Measure M contemplated. That needs to happen with Sepulveda. And I have participated in, well, to the extent that participation really counts in some of these virtual meetings. I recently attended the meeting in the Valley that Bob mentioned. And I want to go to as many community meetings as I possibly can myself. You will definitely see my team there. But I went and had the experience, and I agree. I walked away not really understanding what I was supposed to take away from it. I think there was a lot of information for people who might not have ever heard of the Sepulveda line, but I don't think there were very clear answers for people who have done the homework to be checked in at every stage. As Bob mentioned, what are those milestone moments? What is the timeline? What are our expectations? I don't think any of that is clear on Sepulveda. And so it needs to be clear for me, and it needs to be clear for you. And so that is absolutely a commitment I am ready to make.
Hold the microphone. You guys can all hear me, right? Okay. So this is going to be lightning round from Bob Anderson. So just yes, no,
I'll
So
try.
I know. So Bob's first question is, do you have an opinion, monorail versus subway?
No.
Are you concerned that Metro does not consider project affordability in selecting their preferred alternatives?
Yes.
Okay, you're doing good. Does the Metro Board have a plan to stop Metro from withholding basic project information from the public?
You asked that again? A
Sure.
plan to,
Oh, why is, I'm sorry. Yeah, does the Metro Board, your board, the Metro Board have a plan to stop Metro from withholding basic project information from the public?
I think I'm hearing that like your first question about increased transparency.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at the table now. People in Metro staff, I just had a meeting with them this afternoon. One of whom I worked with on the Crenshaw Northern Extension, he said, "You're gonna work us to the bone." And I said, "Yeah, that's, and he goes, "But you're so nice when you do it, so we want to work." I said, "Great, because there's a lot of work to do, and I'm prepared to make sure that it happens."
Okay, Jeff Calvin wants to know, why is Metro creating toll lanes on the 405 freeway? It will decrease the amount of lanes for the average citizen, and it's basically a regressive tax that will further disadvantage the disadvantaged. What does this initial $260 million funding pay for?
So my understanding is that Metro hasn't completely decided that that's going to happen. It is something that has been discussed and that they are seeking input on, but I don't believe it's a done deal. And I think they are exploring it because they have seen how it has worked in other countries. But I think to the essence of your question, how is that going to impact people who need to get to their jobs, for whom those jobs are maybe minimum wage jobs, not providing a high income. There's a lot of issues to address in there. And so I think that's why it's not a done deal, because it hasn't been fully thought through.
Okay, and his lovely wife, Maria, wants to know.
Use the mic.
But you can't hear me? Okay, I'll speak up. I'm sorry. Okay, tough crowd. Maria Calvin wants to know, why is Metro supporting digital billboards on our freeways? Most people feel that these distractions will cause more accidents. Did Metro do real, effective, honest public outreach concerning these billboards? Better?
So what I can tell you about the outreach is that it was done before my time on the Metro board. And so when at my first Metro meeting, they brought this billboard proposal to me. I was the only person at the board to abstain from that vote because I didn't think that I had enough information on exactly what you're talking about, the process to get to that moment. What I do know is that it's not the final decision. What I was told is that they are relying on the process that will happen in the city of Los Angeles, because it's ultimately the city that will authorize or not whether these billboards can move forward. So from the Metro side, they have cleared what is within their authority. But right now, the billboard process and the land use process will go through at the city council. They have to adopt a citywide policy, and that will impact whether Metro can do the billboards or not.
Okay, so city council members there's 15 city council members, and they represent about 300,000 people each in city of Los Angeles. How many there's 5 supervisors, and you represent about 2.7 million people, is that right?
Okay. So Jay Weitzler wants to know, Jay, you here? He wants to know, what is your opinion on increasing the number of persons on the Board of Supervisors? As each of you represent a little over 2 million people.
Jay, thank you for the question. That's also one of the motions that we authored. We initiated a motion on governance reform to create greater transparency and accountability at what is happening at the Board of Supervisors, including expansion of the board. That's something that I support. We want to take those first steps. Supervisor Mitchell and I authored that motion. It did not get a third vote in its first form. But we just, at our last meeting, brought it back in a revised form and read it in. So it will be on our agenda on February 28th to take those first steps to study how we can create greater transparency, reform how the county does its governance, because it's wild how a motion becomes a motion. I could take you through that if you're interested, but it happens in a variety of different ways, many of which are not transparent to the public. So that's why you don't know what's going on in the county, because often it doesn't, unless you know to show up to the meeting, you might miss that whole process. So we want to make that clearer, more accountable, and so the public can engage with it more. And certainly expansion of the board is something I support and I'm interested in seeing us get there.
All right, Charles Baker, raise your hand. Thank you. Charles wants to know, do you support Los Angeles being a sanctuary city? If so, why?
Yes, I do. I think that sanctuary city status is important. We do have a lot of undocumented residents. In my own community, we had undocumented residents who needed help during COVID, and they were afraid to access the services that were needed because they didn't have ID cards. They were afraid if they went to get a COVID vaccine or a COVID test that they might be thrown out of the country for doing such a thing. But they had jobs, they were productive members of society otherwise, but they couldn't seek basic services because they were living in fear. I think we need to be a city that helps support people. We shouldn't be a welfare city. We should be a sanctuary city where we're protecting human rights and people's basic safety.
Okay, and then the last question is from, I don't know who, because they didn't put their name, but I promised the supervisor that we would be done by 8:30. So is it likely that the Board of Supervisors will lift the vaccination requirements to work at election polls anytime soon?
I'm not sure. That's not a question that's come up on my radar. So I will talk with our registrar recorder to see what the election poll rules are and if he's planning any changes.
That's it. Fantastic. What do you guys think? Great job. Thank you very much.